The Nuts and Bolts of Writing, Season 2, a podcast where we talk about literature, the ins and outs of writing, and how to actually start writing. Hi, everyone. Today, Tete and I are going to be talking about a subject that we're both guilty of and have been for a certain amount of time.
For a
And
long
it is
time.
how to stop sexualizing your characters.
Holy Toledo, have guilty. Slap the cuffs on me. Take me away. I'm guilty, judge.
Yes. So both of us were sexualizing some of our characters. For me, it was Joel, and for Tete, it was
my big, thick boy, Andrei Danilovich Novokshonov. I mean, it was just my precious, big, thick Cossack man.
Yes, exactly. And were there any other characters we sexualized?
Oh, golly gee. Trying to think. I think anytime I touched Clark, it was always a disaster, whether it was Zindel or Misha. Misha was probably the guiltiest one. Zindel wasn't too bad, but Misha, good lord. And I blame this all on the beautiful artwork from Red Sun, the comic, because made that man too beautiful. That man was too beautiful and he aged like fine wine. Darn you, DC. Darn you.
Well, it's because he didn't age at all because he was an alien.
Well, he did kind of age. I mean, he got
Oh, a
like that
little
nice gray
bit.
hair
That's
and got
true. Yeah,
wrinkles.
but
He got
everyone
cute
else looks like a
wrinkles.
freaking fossil next to him. Like everyone looks like a fossil. Like remember Lois was like 90 at the end or something?
Oh, that's true. And then didn't they live to like be 800 years old because of Lex technology or something?
Yes, exactly. But yes, on to the questions. Why did we sexualize our characters?
I'll go first, just because I needed to get that out there and get this off my chest. I sexualized Andrei. It really didn't start like that in the beginning, but when I first started writing and drawing as a young kid on DeviantArt, I made everybody hot and sexy, just because that was the thing to do. And I enjoyed it. I thought, oh, abs, or oh, great hair. And, of course, I was influenced too by a lot of the anime husbandos, and we all know the culture around that of, most North American teens and the weeaboo culture. But it stemmed from more stuff, and I had a strong penchant for romance, even though I said I didn't like romance. I just didn't like the fluffy stuff. I just wanted like dark, angsty stuff. So I sexualized most of my male characters. They never lasted very long. Finally, when Andrei came around, I said, boy, I won't do this. He's going to be serious. I picked a scary looking face claim because it's accurate to his ethnicity and physiognomy. Lo and behold, I picked Vladimir Mayakovsky. Unfortunately, as I grew, Vladimir Mayakovsky became, probably number one sexy history man in my book. And I just like I just kind of had, computer shaking. It's a meme, and before I knew it, Andrei just became very sexual. He just radiated this erotic, not erotic, but this virile energy, which is a term we now do not like, virile. And I still think of Andrei like this. Andrei is like a thick-necked, broad-shouldered, barrel-chested, strong man, and his dark hair and his heavy brow and his strong jaw and his broad shoulders. And I know I already said that. And he also has a little bit of chest hair, which makes him more masculine. He'd look good in a beard, and he'd look good in a Mesopotamian epic, wearing very little clothing, and his skin bronze tanned in the desert sun. Oh, help me.
He needs to reenact the Bible.
Yes, he needs to reenact, like he either has to do Mesopotamian epics, like he has to
Gilgamesh.
be Gilgamesh or Enkidu, or he's going to be Samson. And I always love thinking about Andrei as Samson. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So for me, I think it was because originally, like you, Joel was not meant to be sexual. He was just this, prickly, argumentative person. And, he was kind of a foil to Sam, and Sam wasn't sexualized either. Sam was just, kind of a funny
Sam.
troll guy who just likes to piss people off. As I said, in private conversations, he's the type who would enroll in Liberty University and Patrick Henry College, two evangelical Christian colleges in the US that don't believe in evolution, and they believe in all kinds of crazy stuff. He would go there just to troll people and, record everyone secretly, or, take notes on what they're saying, and then write a book about how I infiltrated, Patrick Henry College, one of the leading pro homeschool and pro evangelical colleges in the country. He would do that to expose them. And
she's
troll
and then, master.
Yeah, and Joel, he was kind of like the stoic, stern man who was just really different from Sam.
You said the two S's.
Yes, exactly.
Stoic and stern.
and sexualized.
And sexual, the three S's.
Yeah, he was actually a nerd at the beginning. He was very skinny, and he was not athletic, and he was kind of acerbic and not very good at conversations, so not a lot of people liked talking to him because he wasn't fun or interesting or considerate.
He was a little punk, like,
yeah, he was.
I don't know why, but I guess it was his stern and stoicness that got to me, because I have a thing for stern and stoic characters. I blame two characters from my childhood and teens. I blame Lord Sesshomaru from Inuyasha, and I blame the fictionalization of Captain Von Trapp from The Sound of Music. That's what led to my fixation on stern men.
Right. And then gradually, I'm not really quite sure. I think you can remember, but how did he start being sexualized? Was it The Sims?
I don't think it was The Sims, believe it or not. I think it came when you started to do the Book of Joel, and he became, it's like he left the awkwardness of high school and he wanted to prove people wrong. So he started not being a skinny little nerd you throw in a locker, but then he just blossomed. Like, he had the high school glow up,
right,
and he just became like this good looking guy that people wanted, but he was like, screw you, I don't want you anymore. Because he's just so defiant like that. Defiant. I love that. Defiant.
Right. Yeah, he was really defiant. Like, I actually didn't think about his looks at all when I was designing him. He wasn't supposed to be attractive when I first made him, but then you were like, oh, it's not fair that he was so skinny, and so I'm like, okay, let's just make him not as skinny. Like, I still wasn't thinking about making him good looking necessarily. Like, he was just less ugly, I guess. And then I guess that started
it was a dangerous slippery slope.
The minute he was no longer ugly, it just started meaning something else. And then the minute Malka came into the picture, I guess it became really sexualized, because there was this kind of tension between Malka wanting him, but then he's like, I don't want sex because it's an indulgence. Because part of Joel's personality is his rejection of indulgence, because he is someone who does not believe in hedonism. Sam, he's not really a hedonist, but he calls himself a hedonist, and Joel is someone who wants to go against that.
That is true. That leads to another thing of mine. Not to make this about myself, but something about the stoic guy not wanting to be tempted. Just it's like it's like when it is not there, you're more tempted to go for it, so to speak. And kind of like what I had with Andrei. Now that he's stoic, he's just become sexier now. Oh no.
Yeah, I thought he wasn't.
Defeat.
I did not know that. Like, I thought it was like, whoa, I guess now that his personality isn't as flirty anymore, it's you're gonna have a better well, not better, but like a different understanding of him, right?
No,
I did not know that until you told me. I was like, oh, from my perspective, it didn't seem sexualized anymore, because when you were writing the Tapas version, it was sexualized because there were so many sex scenes in close succession, and he was constantly thinking about it too. Like, in his thoughts, he would be thinking about Tamara, and then he'd be thinking about the women he seduced, in the past, and he thinks about how he loves a good meal and these hot women, and and he thinks about sex positions and pleasing a woman, and how he's so proud of pleasing a woman sexually. But now the new Andrei, from what you showed me, is not someone who thinks about that at all. So I actually thought he was no longer sexualized. But from your perspective, because you still think about his physical attributes a lot and his sternness, he is sexualized because of how you perceive him.
Exactly. My perception has just somewhat remained unaltered. So, instead of Davushka, it's a bit like, sternly, like Tamara Georgievna, please don't. And he's sternly glaring at her and clenching his tight, broad jaw. And she's just kind of like flicking her fingers under his chin,
Oh my
saying,
gosh.
"Oh my
Oh my
gosh."
gosh.
I'm
Yeah, no
sorry.
wonder. And you're gonna have to write more chapters to show how he dissolves, right? So that's even more tantalizing than him just
I
saying,
know.
yes, let's get at it. Like in
I know
tablets.
because now it's going to be so hard to, dissolve his resolve, and seeing how he gives into Tamara, the immaculate, Shamkat of the Soviet 1920s.
I see what you mean now. Yeah, it's even more sexualized because now it's like a puzzle you have to solve.
It is, and Andrei just, giving into, I mean, but you know what? It's not even hedonistic pleasure. I guess it's more satisfying now because I guess it's like he's learning to love and trust someone, and it's kind of a very sweet process because he's never really been loved before, and Tamara's never been loved before. So I'm hoping that the heavy essence of genuine love detracts from the tantalizing sexualization, but I still love the idea of, stern Andrei clenching his tight jaw and his heavy brow, and Tamara trying to softly and sweetly seduce him, not in a boring, trite way, but in a very, clever way that, just hits the piano key on him.
Right. Yeah, but for me, why I sexualized Joel was because I was feeling bored. And, also I was feeling very dissatisfied with my life. I didn't really have anything to look forward to other than work. And then after that, I would just be, drawing buffer pages for the book of Joel and Sam New York. And I wasn't thinking about real life anymore because of the pandemic. And I was like, who knows when we're going to go back to normal? Let's not think about real life. And that just digs a bigger hole in your life because if you don't think about that, then you're going to just keep on daydreaming about your characters. And while that may be helpful for creating new concepts and getting yourself to actually write, it can be damaging if you overdo it because then you don't think about anything else and then it becomes an obsession.
It becomes an obsession, and then you're not even getting forward with the story. You're just hypothesizing love scenes, or I don't know, hypothesizing a lot of AUs in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, did you struggle a lot with AUs, or was that mostly me going with the whole AU train?
I didn't really do AUs, but I did hypothesize a lot of sex scenes, but I just didn't draw or talk about them that much, but I did think about them.
That is true. That is true. I struggled with AUs. Like, I wanted them in Mesopotamia. I wanted them in ancient Greece. I wanted Andres a Minotaur. That says a lot about me.
Yeah, exactly.
Was a
Second
Minotaur.
question, how did we wean ourselves off of sexualizing our characters?
Hmm. I'm going to let you go first on this because I think you were maybe the first one to take steps towards that.
Right. I think I started realizing there was a problem when you came to visit me last September. And I think it was the day we were at the zoo, that depressing zoo where all the animals looked underfed and
It's
there were
sad.
some weird people and
Weird
yeah.
people. A bird ate garbage, for
Yeah.
goodness sakes.
Yeah,
Shame.
exactly.
Shame.
Because I was slowly adjusting to becoming normal again after like a year and a half of being essentially locked away because of
Yeah, like,
COVID. Yeah.
I mean,
And
you were just asleep like in the Matrix,
I
so
was, yeah, I
yeah.
didn't feel like a normal person, and all I had was work and freaking OCs all the time. So yeah, I wasn't normal because like 90% of my mindset was OCs. Like if I went to the supermarket, I would be thinking about OCs. I mean, OCs are original characters, yeah. So I would be thinking about, I don't know, like Joel and Malka making out when I'm buying lemons. I would be I don't
Lemon,
know,
get
when
it?
I'm yeah,
Lemon.
exactly. When I'm picking up a takeout order, I'm thinking about, wow, Joe and Malka holding hands at Harvey's delicatessen, not thinking about myself or the
No.
people I'm with. I'm thinking about all these fictional
Character.
scenarios in my head.
I thought of the same thing too. Like my job is in retail. I don't need to go into details. Anybody who's in retail, especially if you're like a cashier, it's hell. But I would just daydream about Andrei and Tamara doing something, or Andrei as a minotaur, and Tamara's like this, Grecian oracle, and they're going on a journey, or you know, um Andrei as whatever, Tamara doing something. And then I lapsed into it last January. I revisited Lois and Clark, and I was just thinking of all these hot scenes, and it didn't help that I really was starting to revisit Snyderverse, and I really enjoyed it because it was so sexualized. And I was thinking of
Mm-hmm.
bathtub scenes. Yes, best scene in Batman versus Superman is that bathtub scene. I was thinking of that. Like I'm in one section of the store that's really shit, and I'm just doing cashiering all day with jackasses. I'm just thinking about Henry Cavill peeling off his shirt, revealing those white washboard abs.
Yeah, exactly. People Ask Men on Reddit, by the way, they were saying, who's the most over-sexualized male celebrity these days? Everyone said Henry Cavill.
And I feel bad because I feel like he wants to be an actor of substance, and he did a really good job with The Witcher. And he wanted to do more with The Witcher, but the reason he left was they were taking it into an entirely new direction with the fourth season, so they boot him off. And then DC doesn't, well, DC has always done him dirty, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for him because that can lead to a lot of mental stress. Like, he even claimed that he could not date people for a very, very long time because of the pressure that was put on him to be this ultimate sex god, so to speak.
I know. I don't like it either. It's very damaging to everyone involved. And it's very cheap. Like I said, people are like, oh, women can sexualize men because it's an open society now. And it's not just always men in control, always sexualizing women. But I don't like the other way around either. I don't think anyone should be sexualized. I don't like this revenge mentality that a lot of women have. Oh, I can sexualize men now because I'm a girl boss or whatever.
I don't
Or
like that either.
feminist.
I
Yeah.
feel like that's very cruel. That's just as bad as the other way around. And I don't think anybody should be sexualized. Yeah, and sometimes when I think of my character sexualized, it's not like I'm trying to do it in a cheap way. It's just that I see them and I see a lot of positive attributes in them. And it's like I want to know them better, because
Hmm.
I don't see or experience or meet people like that. And I mean, I, for one thing, I don't like to like cheapen the experience. Like, I want to know the substance of that, person or whatever, before thinking of that. I think the problem is it's when it detracts you from the character itself, and
Hmm.
the integrity of their narration.
Yes, and also, I think this leads to one of the tips I have for how to stop sexualizing your characters. It's to not see them as potential people you'd want to meet in real life. For me, it really started working when I stopped thinking of Joel as, this perfect man that I would like to meet. I just thought of him as a literary character, akin to what you would see in, Philip Roth's novels. So when I thought about him like that, even if he is good looking, it becomes nothing to obsess over because he is no longer, basically an imaginary friend, which was what he was becoming.
That's very true. I started to cure myself off of this when I had one character, Kyria, whom I originally thought would be hot, and he's still kind of hot, but he's very terrible, that I would never want to meet him. Like, he's
Hmm.
terrifying. Like, I don't want to touch him with a 30 and a 9.5 foot pole. And that's sort of what kind of cured me. It's a bit like getting a spoonful of pepper and clearing your sinuses. And
Hmm.
it still hasn't been 100% effective, but it's made me think not about good looks. And when I think about it, I don't think it was ever really about good looks. I think it was just about wanting to know this person, but now I have a different relationship with different characters now, and it's a lot healthier now, and I can do their
Mhm.
stories more justice and not get distracted by it.
Yes. I think being more objective works too. Like if you think about them as people you would really want to meet and think about, in the future, what if I meet someone like this? Then it just becomes a hypothetical in and of itself. And, that is too much immersion, maybe. As Halivorn said, sometimes too much immersion isn't really that great because, she told me that sometimes what I was doing, because I was telling her that I wasn't comfortable with a lot of immersing myself, with the daydreams and stuff. She said, yeah, that stuff is not conducive to writing. And sometimes it's just for pleasure. You're sick of the people around you. So you want to create this perfect or interesting, not even perfect, interesting person that you
Interesting.
would like to get to know. But that's a hypothetical. Why don't you think about, other things that you can have a control over? You can't create a person from scratch and say, hey, in the future, I'd like to meet that person, because there's no guarantee that person even exists.
That is very true. That is so good to be objective. And that way you know, how do I say, you're able to not have that bias or attachment to the character when you're narrating their story.
Yes, and it's less tiring because the more you think about your character as, basically an imaginary lover, unfortunately, the more exhausting it gets and the more personal it gets. If someone doesn't like your story, you're going to be offended because you're like, oh, I love this character so much. How come this person doesn't like it? Do they hate me or whatever? Or am I a bad storyteller? Or is my character really bad? But people perceive it differently from you because they're not the ones seeing your character as an imaginary friend you would like to meet. So for them, it's just a story, and maybe it doesn't appeal to their sensitivities. That's it. But then you take it really personally because you see this person, this character, as a person that's almost like an extension of yourself and your desires.
That is very true. And that is not a productive or positive thing. And I guess sort of a byproduct, well, I mean, a byline to that is that I think, the advice to give other people is not to really care about, what other people think, but, keep in mind that people will have a different perspective of your character. It's like, Andrei, not everybody likes Andrei. A few people do, but then there's a few people that don't. And and you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that. And that's one step to moving forward in the writing process, knowing that not everybody's going to love your character and what they have to say or tell.
Yeah, or maybe they just like the story, but they don't like the character. Just like, people can read Portnoy's complaint and basically no one likes Portnoy. He's not a good person. He has so many problems, but you still like the book because of the themes and how it's told.
That's very true. That is very true. Sometimes there are works where, the character it is not appealing. It's not the integral point of the work itself, but rather it lies in the story and the concepts it explores.
Exactly. So number 3 is, when are we tempted to sexualize our characters? How can we stop it when, the urge arises?
Hmm. You know what? I'm going to let you take the reins on this one again because I feel like you have the most objective answer.
I guess in the past, not so much anymore. I was tempted to sexualize my characters when I was feeling down and I just wanted escapism. So, after, let's say a lot of stress, staring at the computer and a bunch of revisions from clients, I'd be like, I'm done for the day and I'm going to think about something that's really nice. And then it's going to be probably a sexual thing. And it's probably going to be, so tantalizing, and just thinking about how exciting it is. And, how it's something you can just lie down and imagining it happening to you. But then now I don't think it's appealing anymore because I know it's a product of my mind and it's not happening in real life, and it's repetitive. After a while you're just like, it's the same thing over and over again. How exciting is it if it's just going to be repeated in my mind all over again?
I feel the same way. I no longer think in terms of these tantalizing daydreams, but instead I'm putting myself in the character's shoes and what they want to do with their lives, and that is more rewarding. than it was with all the tantalizing stuff. And you're right, it does get repetitive. It gets boring because it's the same thing over and over again. Like, even now I'm working with two different characters. I find it a lot more energizing than it was with my sexual struggles with Andrei, and me kind of projecting myself into Tamara, that I'm being the, this seductive, gentle woman trying to, rehab this man.
Yes, exactly. And if we feel like we can't do a certain scene justice because of these struggles, it's okay to skip forward in this story and focus on something else that needs to be fleshed out, I think.
That's true. That's very true. Just fast forward to another scene. And the more you think about your characters and what they do, and put yourself in their shoes, that is a great way to wean them off. And I've always written from Andrei's perspective. I just throw myself in there, and sometimes you want to be careful how much you throw yourself. Sometimes you want to rein back some distance, because sometimes your characters go through heavy stuff. Like, sometimes the heavy stuff with Andrei, it can like really rattle your mind because of it's so heavy.
Right, definitely. And
Yeah.
another tip to stop sexualizing characters is to not just not solely focus on writing. I think what happened to me was that I was defining myself, especially on the internet, as, this creator and writer of characters. And when you become so embroiled in that role, it just becomes your whole identity and you can't stop thinking about it. And, it's good to step back and do other things, right?
It
It's good
is.
to
It
think
is.
about your career as well, which I was not doing because I was just so fixated on my job, which, can change any day. We can't take things for granted, especially
I
with how
know.
technology is changing. So many jobs are going to disappear or radically change. So we must always equip ourselves. And, when I started talking more about real life again, it was easier for me to connect with people that I've always known in my area and my surroundings, because let's face it, we're not surrounded by writers all the time. We're not surrounded by people who know about our stories or care about literary ideas. And it was good to connect with people who don't care about these things and, can actually help me, develop my career a bit more, because I was not thinking about my career. I was just using writing as an escape and to build my self-esteem, because well, in the past few years I've had bad self-esteem because I did not have a job for many months of a year, and I also didn't really have a lot of career prospects. And instead of building my career prospects, I just escaped into the online world of characters, which was irresponsible.
That is true. I understand. It happened with me as well. And when you do real things, when you balance and have a variety of things, when you reach out to people, whether or not they have the same experiences or passions like you do, it is rewarding. And like you said, I think the big road to Damascus, if you will, was when we were at the zoo, and I did not want to talk about our characters. I wanted to talk to you and learn more about you and the stuff you did, and other fascinating things. I wanted to learn more about, the like, Toronto and everything about it, and I just really wanted to immerse myself in that experience. And I think that was the beauty of it. We did not really talk about our characters at all
I
during that
know.
wonderful trip. We did
That
not.
was a good thing because, I didn't expect that either. I thought we were going to be RPing in real life. I was like, oh, that's so
Oh,
exciting. We're going to be talking
RPing in real.
about, Joel and Andrei going on their adventures and RPing as them as we go to the museum. But we
I thought that was
didn't.
going to be cool. I was brushing up my accent. I was going to be, Yolenka, here we are at Royal Ontario Museum,
Yeah, but we didn't do
beautiful
that.
museum. And Joel's just going to be a little prickly thing, and I was just going to be this big booming man, like,
You could give
Yolenka,
sex advice. Don't
Yolenka,
forget.
I show you how to get the vushki, eh?
Yeah, he's I'm going to show you how to please women.
How to please women, Yolenka. You mustn't be so shy and cold with them. And he slaps him on the back.
And he talks about all his explicit sex escapades.
Yes, he does. And I go into detail about them. How you can get your little Malayenka, make her a happy woman, happy wife, happy life, eh?
I know,
Oh, this
yeah.
doesn't
Okay,
help that.
last question. What is the
Okay.
connection between sexualizing your characters and focus? Does sexualizing your characters detract from the writing process?
Oh, it sure does. I mean, how many times have I written a love scene with Andre and it was like what? Like 2,000 words long, and it was just, I don't know, the most detailed uh stuff, and
Harlequin.
it was like Harlequin. It was Harlequin. I mean, it was just more dignified, I guess.
It was more dignified. Yeah, it was like well-written Harlequin.
Yeah, well written Harlequin. I don't want to use the word historical because now, Harlequin always has their
Me too.
historical,
Yeah.
a Regency and a guy ripping off his, fluffy shirt.
Yeah, Andre ripping off his prison outfit and
God,
going into to Mars.
I don't know. He wouldn't be in her bed, like she'd be like a bath first, and then I don't know. I get to have my own bathtub scene. Take that, Snyder.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I think it definitely does, because one of the problems of sexualizing is that it makes the other parts of the book or whatever you're writing not interesting anymore. You just want to focus on the sex. Everything, in the plot or in the characters' personalities sometimes just leads to the sex scenes. And that makes everything else very boring, and then you lose motivation to work on other parts of the book or movie or whatever you're writing.
That's true. After I did those sex scenes, I didn't want to write anything else, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, because that was one of the reasons why I kind of paused the book of Joel, because I'm like, okay, they had it. I mean, I didn't go into detail, but I'm like, okay, they had it. They realized that they love each other. What else is next? I know what's going to happen next, but how do I portray it? Because the focus for so
The
so long
focus.
was on
It's
them
true.
getting together. So how do we switch the scene, and how do we incorporate other themes that I wanted to explore, like Joel's relationship with his parents, his underachieving nature, which needs to be addressed, and also Malka's underachieving nature, which also needs to be metamorphosed. Like, how are we going to address these when the
That's more
focus is on the
challenging.
sex? Yeah.
And it's challenging because you'd rather have the comfort of sex scenes. Like, oh, I just want Andre back in tomorrow's, cozy little bed, and him murmuring deeply into her, ear and neck as his voice rumbles into her flesh.
And then they just do it again, and it's
They do it
amazing.
again. It's amazing. And she's just like in pure heaven bliss, just melting in Andre's strong arms, his hairy arms, slightly hairy arms.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And exactly, when the focus becomes that, everything else is harder to write because you don't know what to focus on anymore. You're just like, well, who cares about that? Let's just write 5 paragraphs about this really important scene, but I don't care about it anymore because I just want to get to the sex scene.
I know, and it becomes a chore, and it's like you become addicted to that high, and it's a dangerous high because you have to realize the reward and productivity and just the joy, darn it, in just living life. And I think I realized that in the zoo. And I realized that has to be applied not only in real life, but in your writing, because writing imitates in many ways real life.
Exactly. And at that point, when it's just a bunch of sex scenes, it just becomes indulgence. And I think anything, when it becomes indulgence, is not a good thing, because when it's indulgence, are there any goals except for your own pleasure?
That is very true. There is no other goal but your own pleasure. And that's the danger of indulgence. It doesn't produce anything, it doesn't benefit anybody, not even yourself.
Exactly. Even if it's very well written and very well characterized, is there a
Mhm.
point to it other than, wow, I feel turned on or something?
Yes. Yes, I can, I'm like just I'm floating on a cloud of mental bliss, and it only lasts for so long, and then there's no other reward.
Exactly. And you can't publish a novel with just a bunch of sex scenes.
Exactly, not unless you write for Harlequin.
That's true, but you still need a plot. I guess the plots can be really basically just an excuse for them to get together, though.
Right, it is. Every Harlequin every Harlequin plot is so bare bones. Like, I don't know, the Sheik helps this woman find her lost son, or the rakish Duke seduces, Georgiana from, I don't know, from Berkshire, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and then I think 90% of the novel is just them having sex.
It is, it is. I feel like you've read Harlequin, but I know that you haven't.
I just
I
guessed
have.
it from the covers. I'm like, oh no, this looks like something Henry Cavill will be forced into doing.
It will be eventually. I don't know why, but now I'm imagining Henry in all these different roles. I don't know that my mind at one point likes that. On the other hand, I'm scared for Henry. Like, Henry, run, run, Henry.
Unfortunately, he can't ever be a serious actor because he has been typecast as a sex.
That's true. I thought he had a breakthrough with The Witcher though, but I don't know.
It's a little
Maybe
bit
he'll.
sexualized still, I think. In my perspective, it is. It
It
is.
is. Yeah, it's mostly those bedroom scenes with Yennefer, but
And
I'm
also the
glad they.
bathtub. Well, in the river or whatever. Like the one where
Yeah,
he was
that's true.
shirtless. Yeah.
Yeah, he's bathing. Oh, poor Henry. And I feel bad because I know he can be a good actor.
Exactly. And I don't like it when anyone is reduced to basically being, for the lack of a better word, a dildo. And when people were saying, okay, I know we're almost done because we only have 1 minute left,
One
but
minute
one more
left.
thing on Twitter, when people were saying we have to bring back the Snyderverse, and I was looking through the tweets, a lot of people did fan art of Cavill basically being naked and saying this is the reason why we need to bring him back.
I'm like,
So
no,
it's
that's
only
not.
about his looks. It's not about anything else.
No, I said, I mean, the Snyderverse, 65% of it's decent. The other 40% is a hot dumpster train wreck, but I think it's better than what DC's putting out there. But I want you to take the end of this. Go.
Right. Thank you so much for coming on. This is a very important topic, and we need to both talk about it as we work through the journeys of desexualizing our characters.
We do. Thank you for having me on here. And I think this is going to be a journey we're both going to really find rewarding to go on.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.